They run upwards of 350,000 head.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlin Bohling with you. We love having you on board for these ag-related videos each and every day. Today, I'm honored to have with me Mr. Darrell Peel. I should say Dr. Darrell Peel. He is with Oklahoma State University. He's a regular contributor here. And gosh, Darrell, we've talked for so many years. You're my go-to guy when it comes to talking about the livestock industry and trends in the markets and that sort of thing. Right off the top, before we get to talking about the cattle herd rebuilding and all that stuff, I saw a news item here recently where the Oklahoma, the National Stockyards actually may have sold. Do you have any new information on that?
Well, I don't know a lot more than what's been publicly revealed. It's apparently we have a contract to purchase. I think the scheduled closing is in October. They have put together an investor group that says they're going to continue to operate it as a stockyards, which is, certainly reassuring to a lot of people in the industry. I still think there's probably some questions long term about the viability of that location. The Oklahoma National Stockyards is the last remaining of the original terminal markets in the country that's still operating. Now, it hasn't been a terminal market since the 1960s. It converted to an auction at that time, but it still uses those facilities. It still looks like a terminal market if you ever visit the place. And so, it's located right in town. The urban pressures are very real. The environmental issues related to waste management and so on are very real. The water issues. So they've got lots of challenges, but it's nice to hear that they have a buyer that wants to continue it. Hopefully they can make that go.
Why is this so important to the industry?
Well, the industry would get along if it did have to close. I mean, the volume that goes through there, it's significant. They run upwards of 350,000 head in recent years through that stockyards annually. That's a lot of cattle, but those cattle would shift to other locations. I don't know that it would cause a major disruption overall in the industry. It's almost more of a historical and a legacy thing. It's got such a rich history, and given that it is the last stockyards, you really hate to sort of see all of that go away. We just don't have that anymore. Hopefully they'll be able to continue that. That Stockyard City area down in Oklahoma City has just got a tremendous historical legacy there that's been so important to the not only to Oklahoma but to the entire region.
Well, maybe they can kind of rebuild that as if they did in the Fort Worth stockyard.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and that's probably what would happen if it did close, is it would convert to some other kind of development. But if it can remain a functioning stockyards, that's great. And so we, hopefully that works out and they can continue to do that.
And this place is a little bit unique in that a lot of people think, oh, they're running all these fed steers through there, fed cattle and everything. That's not the case, is it?
No. In fact, again, the original terminal markets were located right next to packing plants. That's what made them a terminal market, right? So you can go all the way back to Chicago or Kansas City or Omaha stockyards. Those have all been gone for years. And Oklahoma City was one of the last terminal markets to be put in. But there were originally 3 packing plants right in that Stockyard City area. Those have been long gone for many, many years. And again, it converted to a feeder cattle auction from a terminal market in the early 1960s. I think it was 1961. And so they've operated as a feeder cattle auction since then, with a very unique twist, I might add. The original terminal market had 9 commission companies that had their pens out there. And when you sold cattle through the terminal market, you consigned your cattle to one of them, put your cattle in the pens, and they shopped them around for private treaty sales. When it converted to an auction, instead of getting rid of the commission companies, Oklahoma National Stockyards allows those 9 commission companies to continue to be the ones that represent all the cattle that go through the auctions. And so it's a unique model. In most smaller auctions, if you take your cattle to the auction is the commission company. In the case of Oklahoma National, they provide the facilities, they run the auction, they have the auctioneers and all of that. But the 9 commission companies are the ones that actually represent all the cattle that go through there.
So interesting. So the producer that has a potload or two or a truckload or two of cattle ready to go, they don't necessarily contract directly with the quote unquote sale barn. they go
That's
through
right.
these 9 agencies or companies.
That's right. You have to select one of those 9 commission companies, and they represent your cattle through the auction.
So how do you know who to work with?
It's like everything else. You shop around for your insurance agent or your doctor or your dentist or whatever. So you shop for a commission company, and those guys, most of them have offices in the stockyards building there, right next to the auction facility. But they're competitors. They're competing for customers.
Interesting stuff. Anyway, it's fascinating to watch this story develop.
Yeah.
And you say if they do get it done, it would be done when on a closing?
They have said October is a projected closing date for the sale.
With that out of the way, and we'll follow that and see how that carries through. It sounds like if the sale does go through, they want to maybe keep it and expand the current operations. So that'll be fascinating to watch. I do want to talk with you about some changes since we talked, let's say a year ago. The big fear was, oh my gosh, we're running out of pasture. We're running out of forage because the drought is continuing in the southern plains. Man, that got flipped on its head. And now you guys are just inundated with rain. I can't believe how much rain you've gotten in the eastern part of Texas and Oklahoma, into southeast Kansas, in Missouri, Arkansas, all kinds of rain. That kind of changes the whole dynamic when it comes to holding back cattle, because it used to be there was a lack of feed for them. Maybe that's not the case now. What do you think that means now for the cattle futures going ahead?
Yeah, we've been waiting for months to see, the indications that maybe some heifer retention was happening that would lead to herd rebuilding. And the drought threat has been one of several reasons I think we hadn't seen much indication of that. The timing of all the rain we've gotten through the month of April and into early May here in the southern plains, central and southern plains, has just been incredible. We have had a lot of rain in Oklahoma. We have a mesonet system, and if you look at that for the last 30 days, every reporting station except for the 3 panhandle counties have reported anywhere from 100 to 600% of normal precip during that time period. And the panhandles has even gotten some rain, not quite that much, but so it really changes the dynamics. And again, the timing is critical because obviously pastures are taking off now. Hay production is taking off now. So with this moisture in place, with the amount of rain we've had, we've refilled the ponds. So, that stuff is all really not an issue for producers now. Now, it doesn't mean we couldn't have some drought develop later in the year, but the nature of droughts is if you get the first half of the year, you can kind of get through the second half of the year. And so if we have a good forage season here in May, June, and make a lot of hay and make a lot of pasture, then I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. So it does set the stage for producers now that are thinking about, restocking and getting a little more aggressive with some heifer retention. I think now they can certainly, move forward with those plans.
So producers have a difficult decision to make now, don't they? Because it's pretty tempting to take advantage of these prices that we have nowadays. It's kind of hard to walk away from that and hold these animals back.
Yeah, it is. It's something that happens in nearly every cattle cycle. When you get down to low numbers, prices go up. And initially, a lot of times, and certainly has been true this time, that producers have a financial need to kind of heal up, recover from the drought impacts they've had, extra feed costs, and so on over the last several years. And so initially, yeah, they do take advantage of those higher prices and sell. But at some point in time, once that's kind of handled, they stop thinking sort of real short term and start thinking a little bit longer term. And then their expectations maybe flip to, wow, I need to think about where I want to be able to take advantage of this market. One of the challenges with this cattle cycle compared to the last one we went through is that, we had 2 years of good prices about a decade ago, and then they dropped pretty sharply on the backside of that. And producers remember that, and they have been pretty skittish about these high prices. So go ahead and sell, take advantage of them. We're in it long enough now, and I think, the story is that we're going to be in higher prices. It's going to take longer to rebuild this time. And so I think producers are finally coming around to the idea that, yeah, there is a lot of immediate value for these heifers, but there's also a lot of long-term value. Maybe I need to make that investment and start retaining some of these heifers.
So do the producers have tools available now that maybe they didn't 10 years ago that they can help to maybe manage their profitability for the next 2, 3 years?
Well, certainly, the risk management tools in and of themselves, LRP has become much more widely used and feasible for a lot of producers. Of course, that's an insurance product that comes out of RMA. It's a USDA agency, and they've continued to kind of sweeten the pot, if you will, by making changes in that program and changing the subsidy levels to make it pretty attractive. So there are more tools available. And then, of course, you've got futures and options. You can go with a straight up hedge or put option kind of an approach. And that works certainly well for the current calf crop. I've had the question actually asked, how do I sort of lock in this market for the next 3, 4, 5 years? It's really hard to do in cattle. Grain market guys will talk about selling 2 or 3 corn crops ahead and rolling those positions over. That doesn't work so well when you're in a non-storable commodity like cattle as opposed to a storable commodity like grain. So it's a little more challenging. There's always inherently a little more risk that as in terms of how long this thing's going to last. But the fundamentals are such that it just looks like it's going to take a while for us to rebuild enough to sort of tear up our playhouse here. We probably will someday. That's the nature of markets, is that we will produce our way back into lower prices at some point. But the biology of cattle and the way this thing has evolved means it's going to take a while. This time, I think we're in this for the foreseeable future at a very strong, price supported level in this market.
Okay, let me throw something out here for you. So now you're getting all kinds of rain in I'll call it the southeastern plains. How's that? Kind of a diagonal across the plains there, but the longer term outlook for the northern plains now is dry, maybe from
Right.
Nebraska northward. So maybe what you gain in the southern plains, you would lose for cattle feeding potential further north, even though they have a lot of corn and that sort of thing that's irrigated. But what do you think that'll do to the market?
Well, again, I think that is one of the challenges, because certainly the drought forecast for the northern plains continues. There is significant dryness in some of that region. And so, that's going to limit what they can do from the standpoint of what I can do as opposed to what I might like to do. And I think that adds up to one more reason why this is not going to be a fast process. Part of it is we just can't get the whole country on the same page relative to drought conditions. And that's been the nature of the drought over the last several years, is it's kind of moved around and everybody's kind of had their turn in the barrel. The southern plains, central and southern plains getting a little bit of relief now, but the northern plains now facing some conditions that'll limit things. So all of that adds up to a slow process, I think, when you look at the net national impacts of how we rebuild these cattle inventories.
Well, and then we have the tariff talk. Kind of hard to ignore that 800-pound gorilla in the room. I did hear some rumors the other day. Don't know if that's been verified, but at least one packer was talking about maybe cutting their slaughter rate by about half moving forward, at least for a while anyway. Are you hearing more in that regard? And is that a kind of a looming threat that might happen more often?
Well, I have not heard that per se. I guess I'm a little skeptical that any of the major packers would make that decision unilaterally. I mean, they know that we're in tight numbers, and they know, particularly if we are in fact starting some heifer retention and so on, we're gonna squeeze tight supplies even tighter here for several months. And so they're going to get squeezed down where they have trouble maintaining volume. But, packers are pretty reluctant to voluntarily give up market share. It's very difficult to get that back after the fact. So I think they will work with the best they can. It's going to continue to be a challenge. They've had some very challenging conditions up till now. It's going to persist for an extended period of time. And I don't think they're going to make any major cuts beyond what they just get squeezed into or what they have to do relative to the supply of cattle. I do think we're likely to see the cattle on feed inventory drop more sharply here as we go through the rest of this year. It's already taken a year longer or more than I thought it would, but the ability for us to make tighter feeder supplies look like more cattle in the feedlot, we've kind of played all those cards now, and so I think it's going to show up and really reveal the fact that we're very tight and getting tighter.
Given the relationship between the wholesale boxed beef trade and what the futures market is doing, What does that mean for profitability here on the packing plants?
Yeah, packers have really borne kind of the brunt of this up till now with poor margins. They're going to continue to struggle with that. I think probably even a little more so as we go forward. Although one thing that will happen, we haven't really seen beef production drop much. Last year we expected it to drop, and then in the end, beef production for the whole year was about unchanged from the year before. And that's a function of heavier carcass weights and the fact that fed steer and heifer slaughter didn't drop as much as we thought it would. And again, going forward, it looks like it will drop more because certainly the heifer part of this probably gets tighter. Carcass weights are still big, but I don't think they're going to go up enough again to offset the declining slaughter. All of that to say that right now we're looking at beef production being down modestly, maybe 1% to 2%, but it could be bigger than that, at least by the end of the year, if we start holding back these heifers and squeezing feedlot supplies a little more. And so once that happens, then with less beef in the market, I think the packers will have more ability to shift some of the margin squeeze that they've been facing pretty much alone, shift some of that up into the retail sector. And retail margins haven't really been challenged that much yet because we've had adequate supplies. But if supplies start getting tighter, then I think the retailers will probably share in some of that margin squeeze that packers have mostly been carrying up to this point.
I know you're a big student of historical data. And when it comes to tracking the market, as you go into, let's say, Memorial Day, a lot of people call that the unofficial start of summer barbecue season.
Right.
And then, of course, that runs through Labor Day on the other end of the traditional barbecue season. But at what point, where is your peak in your wholesale demand? Because they always buy ahead of when the holidays are.
Yeah, in fact, the wholesale trade, through April was actually showing a pretty pronounced seasonal pattern. If you look at the major grilling items, the steak items, of course, the ground beef market, apart from that, and it's obviously seasonally stronger in the summer as well. The ground beef market is so tight right now because non-fed beef production is down sharply. And so on the fed side, though, we did see pretty pronounced seasonal stuff. We're really probably past that seasonal peak for the wholesale trade because, like you say, that buying happens 30 to 45 or even up to 60 days ahead of time. And so we're probably through most of that. And then, once that's done, I mean, we've seen the price increase. Box beef prices have been quite strong. And then once we get past Labor Day or Memorial Day, we see how good that was, how good the weather was, and it'll go for a while. And then once we get to, late July and August, we kind of get into the dog days of summer and it backs off a little bit through the heat of the summer. And then there's usually another little bump as we go into that final grilling weekend around Labor Day.
So do you think the market structure right now would favor the the cash market or the futures trade as we get in deeper into summer, let's say like toward July?
For the most part, I think the cash market is still going to be the driver here, certainly for fed cattle. Again, it looks to me like that thing is continuing to tighten up. Fed cattle by themselves, if you look at their seasonal pattern, tend to peak at around April, 1st of April. And they haven't really dropped. In fact, none of the markets that drop usually after the first quarter of the year have really dropped yet. And so it sort of says that there's a trend in here that's offsetting some of that seasonality to some extent. Now, it may kick in a little bit more as we get into the heat of the summer, but it looks like right now, barring something external that disrupts the market, it looks like we're going to continue to see very strong markets that maybe they kind of plateau a little bit through the summer, but I don't think we see a summer drop back very much at this point.
Darrell, I'm glad you had a chance to spend a few moments with us here. I appreciate that so much and look forward to talking with you again here before too long. Darrell Peel, he is with Oklahoma State University. And by the way, have a happy Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, got to take care of the moms this weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, maybe we'll have a steak. All right.
There you go.
Well, thank you, Darrell. Appreciate it. That'll do it for this episode. I appreciate you joining us. For producer Brianne Jenkins, I'm Marlin Bohling, and we'll catch you next time here on the Comstock channel. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and/or options is substantial, and each investor and/or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.